All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our presentation. So this is session 04, and our topic is furthering WAC inference through strategic partnerships. So I hope everyone is in the right session here. And also hope that you are having a great conference experience. It's different, but I hope you are enjoying this conference. So my name is Ming Fan, and I'm the Associate Director of the WAC program in Florida International University, a large public university in Miami. So today I'm co-presenting with my colleagues, Kimberly Harrison and Christina Motorana. So Kimberly and Christine, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Kimberly Harrison. I direct the Writing Across the Curriculum program and our Writing and Rhetoric program. The WAC program is a provost initiative. The writing program is a English department initiative. And I'm happy to be here today and look forward to your feedback at the end.
And I'm Christine Martirana. I teach in the Writing and Rhetoric program, and I'm a consultant for the WAC program.
So Kimberly will first get us started. Christine and I will be presenting our parts, and then we'll open the floor for discussion.
Thank you, Ming. All right, so as Ming said, we are at FIU, Florida International University, a large Hispanic-serving public research university with a population of about 58,000 students. Our WAC program started 7 years ago, and it was, we received initial support through a Provost Strategic Initiative grant that responded to a national survey of student engagement report that showed our students were not having meaningful writing experiences very much once they left their core curriculum courses. So I would say that our WAC program is in our third iteration in terms of structure. When we were initially funded, we were a schools-based WAC program. This was something that our then Vice Provost felt very strongly about. And the way this was set up is that our WAC consultants were given physical spaces in our largest schools. So we had a WAC consultant in the business school, the engineering school, and so forth. We did not see great successes with that model, as you might expect, because it was viewed as sort of as a top-down initiative. We switched gears and we had the budget to focus on grants. So we would offer a number of faculty grants each year, and these faculty would be working on course design or large-scale program efforts, and we would work with that cohort throughout the year. Unfortunately, the budget did not last. And so now we're in, I would say, our third iteration, and we're focusing on sustaining our WAC program through forming strategic partnerships. We found really helpful the whole systems approach described by Michelle Cox, Jeff Galen, and Dan Melzer. And in our context, we are viewing it as a very recursive process. Our university is relatively young, and its identity is still emerging. So our WAC program has had to be agile as well. So today we're talking about how we're working to keep WAC institutionally relevant through our strategic partnerships. Our partnerships, I have included the Center for Advancement of Teaching, Faculty Senate, the Center for Excellence in Writing, FIU Online, and various grant-funded initiatives. And working with our partners, we consider a few categories. The first is invitational or imposed. And by invitational, we're talking about partnerships that result from an invitation that we offer and is accepted, or we accept an invitation from another partner to work together. Imposed, is of course a top-down relationship. We might be asked by the provost or by the Center for Advancement of Teaching to form partnerships in order to help strengthen an existing program. WAC scholarship and our own experience, of course, indicate the pitfalls of such partnerships, but sometimes they are unavoidable. And in our talk, we'll discuss some of our efforts to create successes when partnerships are imposed. We also consider if the partnership is a supportive effort or a WAC identity building effort. And of course, there's room for blending in these categories, because sometimes our supportive efforts can lead to opportunities for developing our WAC identity and reach. Throughout our talk, I think you'll see that a theme is striking a balance. And, and that's something that we are advocating in terms of forming strategic partnerships. We have had some successes in our work in our efforts to further our WAC identity and agenda through partnerships. We have been busy, and I think that is, certainly an indication of success. This past year, we worked with about 455 faculty and offered 6 workshops that were offered in rotation. I believe one of them was offered about 18 times due to faculty demand. We are also we gained Faculty Senate approval to institutionalize regular reviews of our writing intensive courses. And we're seeing evidence from faculty feedback surveys and teaching materials that there's an emerging view of writing around the campus that better reflects our university's emphasis on 21st century literacies in a multilingual context. And we really are realizing the benefits of leveraging our remote context. In Miami, where we are, this is especially important because traffic is absolutely terrible. And we've certainly found challenges of having faculty come to campus for professional development events, whereas leveraging the remote environment has created, I think, a much larger space for faculty development. Challenges, of course, exist. One of them is, in regard to program identity. As we work with more established partners, WAC identity can be subsumed, and we'll talk more about that. Another current challenge is rebranding. And this is something we'd love your feedback on later today. But, we are working on thinking of how to better rebrand WAC to better align with the university's initiatives. Of course, our goal is to position WAC at the table and as an entity for a transformational change. So I'll turn it over now to Ming, who will further talk about our efforts and our challenges and successes.
All right. So in my part, I will be talking about the collaborations that we have with different university units, showing a more in-depth or zoomed in picture of the successes and challenges that Kimberly mentioned earlier. So there are different sorts of partnerships. Specifically, our major partners are listed here. For instance, the Center for Advancement of Teaching, the Writing Center, the Faculty Senate, FIU Online, and various just individual departments and grant-funded programs. So first, I will talk about our collaboration with the Writing Center. So Writing Center is a unit that supposedly has the closest relationship with WAC. So we clearly share the common goal of promoting writing, and the Writing Center staff, they are also our colleagues in the English department. So our collaboration with the Writing Center is mainly on the Writing Fellows program. The program started in 2012. At first, there's not much collaboration between WAC and the Writing Center. But later on, we entered into the collaboration with the hope that we can achieve the purpose of the program better. So in a mutual aim to have faculty maximize the use of embedded writing assistants in their classrooms, the Writing Center trains writing assistants to work as peer writing mentors, while our WAC team supports faculty development. So we focused on faculty development, on writing assignment design, course design to best facilitate the effective use of those writing assistants in the courses. We have had some success at different levels in this program. However, at the same time as the program continues to develop, we also encounter some challenges, such as different ideas about best pedagogical practices using writing as a tool in the disciplinary courses, and also the coordination of respective responsibilities. So next, I will talk about our collaboration with the Center for Advancement in Teaching. So this collaboration was motivated by the common goal of WAC and the Writing Center, not the Writing Center, I'm sorry, and the Center for Advancement in Teaching in faculty development. So we're both interested in faculty development. So with that in mind, we have collaborated many workshops with some common WAC topics and principles, such as giving effective feedback, alternative writing assessment design, understanding and addressing plagiarism, peer review, and we have also helped with their syllabus clinic, supporting faculty with syllabus writing. And also as the need for hybrid and remote teaching rose on campus during the pandemic, we also support their hybrid training and remote teaching training programs. So through these collaborations, our relationship with the center certainly enhanced. But at the same time, during some of these collaborations, our WAC identity is kind of like overshadowed by the center due to the center being a much larger entity on campus with wider and broader influence. Our collaboration with the Faculty Senate is on the Golden Rule writing courses. So Golden Rule writing courses are Florida State University System's mandate of writing intensive courses. So in those courses, students learn about conventions writing in different disciplines, practice their writing strategies, and use writing to kind of enhance their disciplinary writing learning. So these courses are university core curriculum courses. So a lot of history courses, communication courses, philosophy, and religious studies. So a faculty senate committee was formed to establish university policies for the designation and recertification of these Golden Rule writing intensive courses. Currently the committee consists of 5 other faculty members from various disciplinary areas, in addition to Kimberly and me. So this committee provide oversight of these courses, requesting the course materials submitted for the initial application of the Golden Rule status, as well as the renewal of that status. Whereas WAC helps reach out to faculty and help clarify the Golden Rule writing requirements and improve the course design to fulfill those requirements. So currently, altogether, we have 31 Golden Rule writing courses, most with multiple sections. So in any given regular semester, we have over 80 instructors and more than 100 sections of these courses. So having these collaboration and working with the Faculty Senate certainly help enhance WAC's visibility on campus. and help boost campus writing culture. As Kimberly previously mentioned, the remote teaching context facilitates some of our WAC work. So I guess one example is our collaboration with FIU Online, which was charged with preparing faculty across campus for remote and online teaching. So attending our workshop, either remotely or online, was made part of the requirement for faculty to get that remote teach ready badge. So through this collaboration, we have expanded our partnership to a new partner, which we believe will further lead to other collaborations. So finally, we also collaborated with various grant programs and made other connections. Christine will discuss our engagement with various specific grant programs. But in addition to the formal collaborations I have outlined, our other connections also include some individual departments such as history and psychology, the STAMP Institute, which we actually built that connection through some of the STEM faculty member that we have worked with, and also the Office of Global Learning. So Global Learning was our last quality enhancement plans focus. So we kind of partner with them to kind of provide some resources for faculty interested in integrating writing assignment in their courses. So these collaborations are less formal. However, I also think they are important in our efforts in furthering WAC influences on campus. So earlier, Kimberly mentioned successes and the challenges. And I think an additional way to think about those is through the acronym SWOT. So as we think about the sustainability of WAC, identifying the strengths, weaknesses, potential opportunities, and the threats are important. So here are some of our initial thoughts. So in terms of strengths, we have established some trust and bonds, wing faculty buy-in and admin support. And also during the process, I just think our own WAC teamwork gets strengthened as well. But of course, in the meanwhile, we also face some challenges of limited resources, and I believe many of the other WAC programs also face those challenges, which would result in, for instance, the insufficient follow-up of some of our efforts, the lack of a systematic assessment for all those or all of our WAC efforts. But we also see some opportunities. I think moving forward, we need to kind of just to continue developing strategic partnerships and exploring opportunities for new collaborations and possibly new collaborators, which will result in sustaining our WAC efforts and transformational changes while promoting a strong WAC program identity and presence on campus. So next, I will turn the floor to Christine.
Thank you. So as the SWOT analysis shows that Ming just walked us through, there are both strengths and threats when it comes to these partnerships. Often, as has been mentioned, larger organizations and groups on campus have a more robust pool of resources and a larger pull throughout the university than our WAC program does. And so as a result, by partnering with these groups, we are able to have a further reach and impact. However, one of the threats of such partnerships is that WAC loses its unique identity and its agenda. So for instance, as Ming mentioned, during the spring and summer semesters, we participated in CAT's initiative. That's the Center for Advancement of Teaching, CAT. We participated in their initiative to help faculty transition to remote teaching. So this included hosting more than a dozen workshops to help faculty write effective assignments and discussion board prompts for their courses. Kat asked us to participate due to our expertise with assignment design. However, since the workshops were hosted by Kat and the workshop participants discovered and signed up for the workshops through Kat, the participants most often assumed that we were Kat faculty, and they did not end up seeing WAC as a separate initiative partnering with Kat to host the workshop. Obviously, there are efforts that we took in the moment to kind of mitigate this understanding, including introducing ourselves as WAC faculty, explaining what WAC does, offering to workshop with participants, following the workshop. However, alongside these efforts, we realized that it was important to purposely maintain and promote our unique WAC identity and agenda across campus so that we could be viewed as a fully functional, independent campus program. Put simply, if the work that we do as a WAC program is only ever situated under the larger umbrellas of other campus groups, our identity can become subsumed by these larger groups, which will ultimately make it more difficult to sustain WAC as an independent campus program. So to mitigate this threat, we attempt to strike a balance between serving and working with larger campus groups while also maintaining a unique identity and agenda. One way of doing so is by offering programming and outreach where the WAC identity and the mission remain central. This doesn't mean that we forego partnerships with larger or more robust groups on campus. It just means that we think carefully about these partnerships, the events in which we participate, and how we market and promote the events. So for example, during the fall 2019 semester, the WAC program hosted an on-campus meet and greet and luncheon where faculty were invited to have lunch, socialize with colleagues, and meet WAC faculty. At the event, we offered pedagogical resources that faculty could take with them, including examples of cross-disciplinary writing assignments and strategies for responding to student writing. Our goal was to connect with faculty across campus who are interested in incorporating writing into their classes and also promote the WAC program as a valuable resource that these faculty could call upon. As with most on-campus events, we know that faculty are more inclined to make time to come if lunch is being served. However, as Kimberly previously mentioned, one of the challenges that we face is a lack of funding for events such as this. So in order to have the funds to host the event, we needed to work with a group who had such funds. So this is one example of where the strategic partnership comes into play. FIU has a Mellon grant funded program called Humanities Edge. All the programming offered through Humanities Edge must in some way support transfer students who are coming to FIU from the local community college and majoring in the humanities. So we approached the Humanities Edge with our idea for this meet and greet and luncheon event and asked if they would be interested in partnering with us to host the event. Since the event aligned with their mission of supporting transfer students majoring in the humanities, they were on board with the idea. And so they offered their money and outreach to help us invite faculty to the event and also provide lunch for the attendees. Can you see that my screen looks like it froze? Can you see it okay? No, did it freeze? Let me stop and reshare. They said this might happen. Let me try again. How's that? Okay. So this is a photo from our event. It was a really big success. We ended up having over 40 faculty who attended. The conversations were very lively and engaged. The resources were exchanged. And we had a sign-in sheet for the program that ultimately gave rise to our initial WAC email list, which we've since continued to build for outreach purposes. The success of this event led to a second collaboration with the Humanities Edge when we planned a WAC summit for the spring 2020 semester. Humanities faculty applied to present a 10-minute presentation on the theme, Teaching with Writing in the Humanities in Urban Multilingual Contexts. We led the marketing, application process, and organization of the event. The Humanities Edge program contributed to the early brainstorming and planning stages of the event so as to make sure the event would align with their mission. And they also supplied the funds for lunch and the presenter stipends. Unfortunately, the event ended up being postponed due to COVID. However, we plan on hosting the summit in the coming school year, and we're particularly excited about the theme because it supports our efforts at rebranding our WAC program to better suit our local institutional context. In reflecting on both the meet and greet and the WAC summit, we recognize that one reason the Humanities Edge was willing to partner with us is because these events were mutually beneficial, that did not end up taking much planning or facilitating on their part. Put simply, we needed their institutional resources in order to offer compensation and reach a larger number of faculty. They needed our expertise with cross-disciplinary writing intensive classes to provide the pedagogical support to the humanities faculty. And the result of our partnership was WAC-sponsored events made possible by the support of the Humanities Edge. Importantly, the identity and the mission of the WAC program remained central through the marketing, the implementation, and the follow-up of the events, which is quite a notable difference from some of the other workshops and programs that we earlier mentioned. A similar partnership took place during the spring 2021 semester, albeit on a smaller scale. FIU is currently in the midst of a 3-year initiative called Project Think, Teaching Humanities in the New Context. The overarching goal of Project Think is to provide support around curricular development and scholarship for humanities faculty. And one of the ways they do so is by supporting a small number of humanities faculty in a course redesign, where they, very broadly speaking, redesign one of their courses to be more evidence-based, learner-centered, or inclusive. Obviously, there are more details that go into the course redesign program, but for the purposes of our discussion today, I want to highlight the fact that the Project Think has a small cohort of humanities faculty with whom they work on course revision plans. So we recognize the potential for a strategic partnership here in that our WAC program and Project Think seek to serve the same population of faculty. So therefore, at the start of the spring semester, we approached Project Think about offering a workshop for the course redesign faculty to support their redesign plans. Project Think did not have the time or the faculty to offer writing specific pedagogical support for their cohort, so they were really excited by the idea. We then worked with the cohort to find out more about their courses and so that we could conduct a workshop that was specific to their needs. Project Think provided us with the faculty contact information, and then we spoke with the faculty to learn more about their course redesign plans and the topics that they would be most interested in. The result was a workshop titled Using Writing to Promote Active Learning and Foster Community. Similar to our partnership with the Humanities Edge, this partnership was mutually beneficial. They had a cohort of faculty currently engaged in course planning, already being compensated by Project Think for their time, and so we took advantage of this audience. Likewise, we offered our expertise to Project Think so that their course redesign program was ultimately more robust, not only making it more beneficial for the faculty participants, but also enhancing the grant report that Project Think needs to submit to the university and to their funders. Similar to our work with the Humanities Edge, this event allowed us to balance working with the larger university context while also maintaining a unique WAC identity and agenda. Simply put, this was a WAC workshop made possible by the support of Project Think, rather than a Project Think workshop in which WAC was participating. Although a subtle difference, we believe this to be an important distinction, one that allows us to maintain and promote WAC as a fully functioning independent campus program. We do continue to promote our WAC identity through our newsletter called the WAC Connection, and also weekly virtual office hours where faculty are invited to drop in to discuss implementing writing in their classes. So while the larger events such as those with the Humanities Edge and Project Think are important in establishing and recognizing our WAC identity, these smaller efforts are important in maintaining and promoting that identity on a regular basis. I'll now turn it back over to Ming.
All right. So what does the whole system approach work for us in our context based on everything that we have talked about? By the way, congrats to the authors of the book on getting the IWAC Book Award. I just knew it yesterday. So, well, our WAC effort actually did not start with this whole system approach, right? So we started with a a plan for a problem that was presented to us and a structure of partnership that was supposed to solve the problem. However, as our WAC work developed, our strategic partnership collaborations do require us to adopt this approach in our current and future work. I guess not only the WAC leaders, but every single WAC team member must first kind of understand how our university operates as a whole system, what the university's strategic planning focuses on, what entities play important roles, how writing can be aligned to the whole system's critical points, etc. And based on that understanding, subsequent planning, implementation and assessment with the strategic partners would take place. So Christine, can you move forward? So looking forward, as Chris Tice stated in his opening plenary speech, there's no sustainability without adaptability. So while we know very clearly that we would like to sustain WAC faculty development practices, expand WAC's outreach and influences, establishing WAC identity and key role by purposefully selecting and building up strategic partnerships, changes happen every day, right? Every day, every semester, every year. So we need to consider what to hold on to and what to adapt to. And this is a perennial question. So I think the whole system approach provides a systematic way of sustaining and developing our WAC work as we adapt to new situations. Therefore, adopting the whole system approach to sustain and develop WAC should be an ongoing process. So I guess with that, we close our presentation and we will start the Q&A session. So instead of Q&A, I have always been adopting this QCC for all my presentations, which is questions, comments, or connections you make to your local context. This is actually a structure for discussion board prompts that Christine introduced in one of our faculty development workshop. And I just think it's very fitting for what we would like to include in conversation after conference presentations like this.
So I think if anybody has questions or comments that they'd like to share, feel free to unmute yourself. Or if you'd like to use the chat, I believe that's available as well.
Yeah, I saw Catherine raised your hand. Yeah. So just to speak up. Hi.
Hi, I'm not on my video to save my bandwidth, but
Sure.
thank you for that presentation. I have been looking for, all of the information on all of the different bodies one can reach out to and coordinate with and so on. So this is very helpful. But I'm new to this. We have a WAC program that's sort of, hidden somewhere. People sort of do writing intensive classes, sort of. And I'm looking at revitalizing it. And I'm curious about why you felt it's so important to have a separate identity, because it almost seems like what I would like to see happen with WAC would be that faculty are like, yeah, of course, writing is a super important way of learning. And then I would really, or a WAC department would be there to support them, perhaps under a Center for Teaching Excellence or whatever. So could you just talk a little bit more about why you think having that separate identity is so important?
I mean, I think it's a great question, and I think in our context, it is perhaps the desire for autonomy in terms of, us driving our own agenda. And I think, we're WAC, we're a WAC program. The WAC program is under academic affairs. But, the three of us were also English department faculty, writing and rhetoric faculty. So, we share, I think, a philosophy of teaching that we have some things in common with, say, the larger and CAT, but some things we diverge on. So, we do want to have that autonomy to put forward our own best practices, I guess you would say. Does that answer your question in any way?
I can give an example that kind of goes along with that. When we were designing the remote teaching workshop, I believe it was one of the workshops we were doing with Kat early on. They wanted us to do a workshop on writing effective exam questions, specifically focused on multiple choice questions. And so the response was that we could help with that, but we also could talk about how do you write like short answer questions, or essay questions to help students use writing, to learn, to process, to show what they knew about the content and not necessarily just a right or wrong answer. And there wasn't a lot of interest in that sort of a workshop coming from the center. And so I think that's one example of how maybe having our own identity and our own agenda is necessary, because we know that writing to learn is a really beneficial strategy. And the center wasn't really interested in a workshop that was going to promote that idea for the faculty at that time.
So that's why, a great example to show what we're arguing for really is finding that balance, between the relationships where you do partner with your more established colleagues or offices, but then you do have the room to have your own priorities and goals as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, so I saw another good question from Megan in the chat area. He asked about the faculty senate, the collaborations with the faculty senate. I think I may explain a little bit about that, and Kimberly can fit in some information as well. So for that, I guess we started with feeling a need for providing some kind of support and oversight of our Golden Rule writing courses. So we kind of submitted a request. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kimberly, because I was not part of this at the beginning part. So we submitted a report for submitted the request for the Faculty Senate Committee to be formed, right? And then, Kimberly was on the committee, and we also recruited some faculty members across the discipline who have some kind of experience with WAC, so they know at least some of the general WAC principles. And then the committee worked together to present a plan of oversight, and then we presented that plan to the Faculty Senate for their approval. So I guess in large picture, that's how it works. Kimberly, would you want to add anything else, or?
Sure. Yeah, just in terms of first steps, I mean, I think the first step was outreach to the Faculty Senate president. And that was, I think, the important initial first step to get the Faculty Senate president on board. And that relationship was really important. So it did involve us going to her and presenting how, other models, because in the past at FIU, we did have the Golden Rule courses, but there was no oversight, there was no coordination, there was no support. So we offered other models, which the Faculty Senate president really liked and supported, and then went to Faculty Senate to, to further the initiative and create the committee that Ming has described. Initially, the committee, Faculty Senate, has the committees made up of faculty senators. So the committee initially was one that had very, very divergent views about writing. And I will say the first year was not a productive year, but with the Faculty Senate President's support, we reformed the committee so that it did consist of faculty who had WAC training in some way. And then the committee took off.
So I would say formalizing this process actually is not easy, even when right now we are going the process of just formalizing the renewal process for the Golden Rule status. It's not like we don't have any resistance from the Faculty Senate, but it just takes a lot of like explanation and a lot of like rationale providing to the Faculty Senate to state why this is necessary and what materials we request, why those materials are requested, things like that. Yeah. So I hope we have addressed your question, Megan.
I have a related follow-up, if I may.
Sure, Sarah.
So it sounds to me from what you're saying like you actually either have decision-making power over who's on that committee, or you have managed to set up a requirement that the committee members have WAC training. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
How, which, or is it both? Like, do you actually choose the?
It's both. Early on, we did say, it was clear that the committee was not doing what it needed to do.
Right.
So, we just said we need, we met with the Faculty Senate President and said we really need to have this committee functioning. And this is how it would function if, we have faculty, we draw from people who have had WAC training. And since then, she's no longer the president. We have a new president, but we do continue to have say in who's on the committee. And we ask the Senate President to issue invitations for faculty who we think would be a good fit.
And is this codified somehow into Senate policy, or is this more right now it's depending on the goodwill of the Senate President?
That's a great question. I mean, I think I would have to look back at our documents. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it is actually in the, in the charge. Okay. I'm hoping it is, but now I really can't answer that question. So okay. I will check.
Thank you.
Yeah, it should be.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question.
And we also kind of like reached out to those faculty members who actually got our WAC grant and is really interested in just helping other faculty members to integrate writing and to boost the campus writing culture. So we invite those faculty members into the committee.
Would also love to hear if you have any comments about your own rebranding efforts. We'd love to hear your ideas there.
I have a question. So I'm really interested in studying writing programs, especially at minority-serving institutions. And I know that you mentioned that FIU is an HSI. And in your presentation, you also mentioned aligning with the university's initiatives. And then I also saw applying for HSI grants in your slides. And so I'm just wondering if you can talk a little more about like how being an HSI shapes the WAC program there in terms of strategic partnerships and or even, you know, grants, and maybe it might be more of a question of how much does that designation align with university initiatives, because I know that not all HSIs are the same. You know, sometimes it plays a bigger role in some institutions than others. So if you can, I was just wondering about how that shapes the WAC program there.
Christina or Ming, do you want? I don't want to jump in. Do you? I'll start. I mean, I think your question about, you know, the university identity is an excellent one, and that is something that, you know, FIU over the years has begun to embrace its identity as one of the largest Hispanic-serving universities, which I think is excellent, you know, and that has, you know, is shaping the goals of our program in terms of how we work with faculty, how we help them understand writing in a multilingual context and how to work with multilingual writers. You know, that is something that is just like a given in what we do. You know, we every initiative, every workshop, every consultation, we keep multilingual writing pedagogy at the forefront. So, but in terms of our identity, and this is what we're sort of struggling with in terms of rebranding, you know, and working with our university leaders, they are urging us, you know, to think about how do we position the program to be more attractive to grant funding entities. You know, and so in that way, they're urging us to think about, you know, what does WAC, how does WAC look different to a grant funding entity at an at a Hispanic-serving university? So this is something that we're really struggling with, just in terms of how do we, you know, in our everyday operations, you know, these operations are influenced by our context. So now we're just thinking about how do we brand ourselves so that that is clear to other outside audiences, if that makes sense. So maybe by the next IWAC, we'll have some really good concrete things to share about how we've done that. But that is something that we're working on. The last meeting I had with our vice provost, she was suggesting that we work with someone in marketing, and she was trying to set that up just to think about that rebranding. Does that answer your question?
It does. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. At the pedagogical level, when we work with individual faculty members, we wanted to kind of remind them that we are the HSI, right? So we do have a lot of Hispanic students, multilingual students. Some of the faculty members, disciplinary faculty members, they don't have any training working with the multilingual students. So we kind of like bring that to the foreground when we work with them. So just like we need to pay attention to our audience, right? So teaching, in teaching, that's the same. We need to pay attention to who's our students right in front of us, right? So I think every faculty member need to recognize that they are teaching in a Hispanic-serving institute, and pedagogically, they need to kind of adapt to their audience. And also, in addition, we recognize that it seems that a lot of our grants that we got externally kind of tie into our universities as HSI status. For instance, I think the latest example is last year, we got an NEH humanities grant because we are the HSI institute. So we, as a kind of like WAC, to kind of strengthen the WAC identity, or to kind of identify the strategic partnership, we need to be aware of Where are our grant programs and what are those strategic planning with regards to our HSI status, and then try to kind of link our work and try to kind of identify the potential collaborators based on that.
I think related to that, it kind of goes the other, it's multi-directional in that in order to apply for grants and to show that you're doing that work, you actually have to have evidence of doing that work and show that it's important. So, you know, if you remember, I mentioned the WAC summit that ultimately got postponed, but the theme of that was teaching writing in multilingual contexts. And we were going to have presentations of people who are integrating that into their teaching. Ultimately, I think our hope was that that would lead to a bank of resources that we could then use to structure future workshops, to structure future interactions with faculty, to help them bring in multilingual writing pedagogy. So it's a cycle where you want to apply for those grants and to support the work, but also to show that the work is happening and it needs support.